Care to explain why you have a Tinder profile?
Not right now, no. I don't care to get into why I'm so miserable in our marriage that I feel like I had to get a Tinder account with our kids around. Okay, I'm trying to give him a bath. You're literally holding our 6-week-old baby. No, I'm not trying to explain this right now. When the kids go to bed, sure. We'll talk later though, not right now.
Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 344. It is the last day of the week, aka the Big Bang Attack workout. I am feeling pretty good right now, very excited for this workout. But anyway, to the main subject matter for today, accountability. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss accountability is because it is something that I feel like a lot of people lack nowadays. It is something that you see a lot of the time in certain aspects of not only the fitness realm, but also most of the internet. As when you discuss things with certain people, they will try to get rid of the accountability of their own actions. Obviously, this is very prevalent in today's society. I wouldn't say it's that prevalent because there are people who do take accountability for things. But at the same time, there are many people who don't and will fight, scratch, and claw to make sure that they don't. So in today's episode, we're going to take a look at it, I guess, maybe figure out why people do it, understand a little bit more on the other side of things as to what would cause somebody to just say, no, everybody is wrong except for me, or you were the reason why I fucked up, or something along those lines. Because I feel like that happens more often than not with certain people, I should say, particularly just certain people. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it as ambiguous as I can for now. But it is a trend I've noticed in a lot of people. Now, I'll say this. I am one to take accountability. I am a big fan of that. I like to make sure that if I can control it, I will take the blame if it gets messed up, of course. But we'll get into more of the reasonings and probably some of the other, morality speaking things and other things like that, and other details about accountability when we get to Mother Base.
All right, so started this day off with this one-arm lat pull down, which is pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Accountability. Noun. The quality or state of being accountable, which basically means an obligatory or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this was because this is something that I see all the time being bucked around, not really taken care of. I think more and more as we've allowed the internet to be into our personal lives, you can see the lack of accountability from certain people, certain groups, whether it be men or women, but we'll get to that in a bit. I think that it is something that a lot of people lack nowadays because more so often than not, we are not allowed really to take control of our lives as much as we would like to, / there are more safeguards for people in order to have it so they don't have to buck the trend of taking accountability, so they can leave it to somebody else. And I think that that's the main issue. I think that a lot of the time is that most of society has been put in a place where we can make it so just saying no to accountability has been so easy, and thus taking responsibility for something has been so lackluster, as well as the consequences of that now, where if you do take responsibility of certain things, all of a sudden you are seen as either a bad guy or somebody that should be relegated to having so much power or something along those lines, where it's like you're almost looked down upon in a weird way. It's very interesting. And there is such a thing as taking over accountability, where you're too much. You see content creators who do this, where they take responsibility of what their audience does, which is asinine in its own right, but that's kind of a different story for a different day. This is just accountability in general, and that people generally just don't really do it. And I think that people don't really do it because they don't want to be responsible. They don't want to be the center of attention. We have been very much over socialized to the point now where if we are in the spotlight, we end up not wanting that spotlight, especially if it's something in the negative. I think a lot of people are ready for the positive outcomes of things like fame and stardom and all this other stuff. That's why you see a lot of people trying to become influencers, but you don't see the negative aspects of it being really shown. And one of the biggest things about that is accountability. You see all the time that people get famous and popular on social media, but yet they do something that is frankly retarded, and then all of a sudden they can't take accountability for it. So something as simple as like paying an artist the fee that they did for a thing that they did, or like, you know, shouting out the correct person, or just making sure the facts are straight on certain things. People will end up not doing those things and then just trying to absolve themselves from it. But it's kind of like you're not being a good person while doing it. And I think that that's also an issue with it, is that the morality that comes along with taking accountability isn't really necessarily talked about now in days, because more so often than not, people will just say, oh, it's okay. They'll try to pass it off as it's okay for some weird reason, when in reality it's not. It's just a evil thing to do, is to pass the blame along to whoever is around that could take it. It's a bad thing. It's evil. It's not good. These people should be shamed for doing that. And thankfully, the internet is decent enough to shame the people who do that. But also, I think that even in personal lives, this is something that should be shamed. And it's understandable that in certain natures of certain people, men and women in particular, we can see that certain people, women, do not take as much accountability as men do. That is just how simply it is. But I think a lot of people try to put too much accountability on, let's say, like something like women or something like that, especially men, especially weaker men. They want to put more responsibility on their plate, when in reality, it's not their job, because that's not their nature. And I think that that's also a weird contingency frustration that keeps happening between the two parties, where you have these men who are weaker, who won't take responsibility, trying to buck it off onto women, when in reality, this is something foreign and new to them. And, you know, you're trying to get them to do this. And then the other way around, where, you know, you have strong men who want to take responsibility, but aren't really given it to it, or given the opportunity to take responsibility and be the accountable men that they want to be, because the women would want to not even allow them into their lives, you know? So it's a very much a weird dance between the two of having the responsibilities and the levels of it. But I think that overall, it is our responsibility as a man, at least, to follow the idea of being the accountable one for a lot of things, even if it seems like nowadays taking a over accountability of certain things, because at this point in time, it seems as though there are enough people that are weak and cowardly to not take the responsibility that comes with this, and will be in the lower levels of thinking and not necessarily even thinking of others, but more so all about themselves. And this is where you have to step up into a levels of thinking to the other people around you and take responsibility, even though they might not even be necessary to have to do that. I think that nowadays, if you aren't doing that, you are basically left behind, really, or you're leaving others behind with you, or leaving others behind. And it's not something that we can do nowadays, just because of how the world is so crazy. So I feel like more people, as time progresses, is going to get more and more responsible about. And I think people are going to realize that they're going to go more into their own nature rather than something like against it, and thus causing a whole host of issues later in life, even in relationships, when you see people who want all of their decisions made by the other partner, but the partner hates making decisions, which is funny how that always works out. But that's kind of a different story for a different day. And to briefly discuss the accountability in partners and relationships, a lot of the time, women don't take responsibility for many of the actions that they do. But the thing is, this isn't new, and it's not something that is, quite frankly, shocking. I think a lot of people like to point at it and have a weird, like, oh, this is a double standard, but this is nature. This is something that we cannot change no matter how much we try. It's like trying to show a dog to be a gorilla. It just doesn't work. It's not the same thing, or even close to the same thing. But this is kind of a different subject for a different day, especially because this goes in relationships and responsibilities there and accountability there. But to expect it from them is, or at least from my point of view, like that, when you see it all the time, especially in social media, is laughable a little bit.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed. None. Exercises skipped. None. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today. Accountability. One of the big reasons why accountability is no longer really a thing is because we're on the age of the internet. You don't need any. You don't have to have any if you're on the internet. Realistically, if you want to, you can stay an anonymous face, just disappear, and come back again. That's it. You don't have to be a specific thing. Now, if you want to make it a career, you might have to do something. But realistically, a lot of people end up pivoting. They might start in one area of the internet, wear out their welcome there, or fade out, and then just pivot to another one that they may have a slight interest in. If they already have the formula that works in one, they definitely can do it in a different place. So it is something where the internet almost I would say rewards people who don't take accountability, because you can just fucking leave. And I think that that's probably one of the issues why more and more people just aren't taking accountability for their actions, really. That, and also you're behind a screen, so thus you can't really interact with somebody else. I'm just pixels on a fucking screen right now. The people who watch this video that know me, IRL, in real life. But that's a completely different situation. Even now, as I interact with this, these are just pixels on a screen somewhere, whether it be on a desktop, laptop, phone, or a fucking fridge. I don't know, because they have phone, you can get YouTube on anything nowadays. But still, the idea is that at the end of the day, because you're not really there, and or the person behind the screen doesn't really exist, well, what the fuck is the point of having any accountability, right? And I think that it isn't necessarily a to each their own, but I do feel like it is something that should be important for more people than it is. But at the same time, it will never be, because of how the internet is laid out so far. Now, here's the thing, which is a very interesting thing. Would I want to change this aspect of the internet? No, because I think that it is good that we have the idea of anonymity and the idea of being able to repop out when things go haywire, only because I think that it allows people to have a freedom that should be there, which is a very weird turn of events that I didn't think would happen. But at the same time, I think that if you are talking about yourself in the actual terms of the world, like here, I will have accountability because I'm showing my face. I'm talking about me. If I decide to become an anonymous account just to talk shit about somebody, yeah, of course, it's a little grimy and a little stupid and a little trolly, of course. But the thing is, I'd rather have the ability to do that rather than not to do that at all. It's very weird, but it's kind of a different conversation for a different day. But I think the main point I want to make is this. Accountability is something that most people should have, especially if you are a front-facing person out on the internet. Even if you aren't one, I mean, at least have some bounds of what you are, bounds of who you are. I think that is the most important thing. Remembering that there are limits to certain things. I would say not necessarily limits to like what you want to say or what you want to do, but understanding that even though it is pixels on a screen, there is somebody behind there, like the opposite of what I was saying earlier, because sometimes people forget that, and for some reason they just say fuck it and we're gone. Or even in real life where you know somebody and you're like, you try to pass the buck on, and you got to understand that most people who pass the buck on, nobody likes you. I don't care who you are, what type of race or gender you are. If you don't have the accountability, I don't like you. I leave immediately. Get the fuck away from me. Why? Because why are you even around me if you can't even respect somebody? If you instantly have to shovel off the accountability of your own actions as to blame something else. Why the fuck am I going to talk to you? You bring nothing to the table. If a mistake if a mistake happens, then you're just going to pass the buck. And what the fuck is the point of having somebody like that in your life? And if you are somebody like that in your life, what the fuck is wrong with you? Really? Do you have friends? What do your friends think of you? Have you ever asked that? Do you even care? Most likely not. But That's the thing about accountability, right? You wouldn't even notice that. You wouldn't notice, hey, maybe I don't have any friends. Maybe I don't have any people that are actually around me that care for me. Oh, right. It's because they all suck and they always make me do bad things. If you are like this, fuck off. But I kind of rambled on enough about this. I think everybody understands accountability and the general idea of it, and I think that more people should take it, at least if they're going to be out there, regardless of whether or not they want to or not. I think it should be happening, especially if you're a man. But with that being said, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and feelings about this one. This was just a random one, but still one nonetheless. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay cool. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.